When you observe the most productive people, you'll notice that their productivity is seemingly effortless because they're working smarter rather than harder. They have structures set up in their life to streamline their productivity. Hi, I'm Mike and I'm a personal development coach, and I've been teaching millions of people over on my YouTube channel Product Elon and coaching hundreds of clients one-on-one on how to live with intention and be more productive. In this class, you'll go through a 21-day challenge where you'll learn how to form habits to make your productivity easier. So we'll start by defining your goals, and then using the Pareto principle, we'll go through how to choose your habits strategically to efficiently and effectively arrive at your goals. So I've consolidated the most important fundamental strategies I've learned over the last 8 years, and in this class, I'll break them down into 3 fundamental concepts. The first is the idea that productivity doesn't have to be time-consuming or arduous. We tend to be at our most productive when we're in a state of flow, where we forget about what's going on around us and we almost lose track of time. And having a set of powerful habits helps us enter into that flow state. The second concept is the idea that implementing habits helps significantly with the consistency of your productivity. So some days you'll feel inspired and productive, whereas other days we just don't. And a powerful set of habits will help balance out your productivity and output. The third concept is that small habits can lead to massive changes in your life. Anyone that has achieved incredible things in their life, it doesn't just happen all at once, right? It takes incremental improvements, honing in on your own craft, getting a fraction of a percentage better every single day. So this class is designed really for anyone that is struggling with procrastination or a lack of productivity, or maybe you've been struggling to stay consistent with a skill that you've been learning, and by the end of this class, you'll have a set of powerful habit building tools and skills that will help improve your productivity by making your life easier. So I'm super happy that you decided to take this class with me, and I look forward to helping you build a system of habits to automate parts of your life, therefore effortlessly increasing your productivity. I've designed this class project to be a 21-day challenge, where I challenge you to complete the daily set of habits that you will build throughout this course for 21 days. So there's a theory that it takes 21 days for a habit to become automatic, right? Meaning after 21 days of using self-discipline to force yourself through a habit, after the 21st day, the action should become a lot easier. And this 21-day period was first introduced by Maxwell Maltz, a plastic surgeon in the 1950s. And he discovered that a patient who had, for example, a face operation would need 21 days to get used to seeing their new face. And he came to the conclusion that these and many other commonly observed phenomena tend to show that it requires a minimum of about 21 days for an old mental image to dissolve and a new one to gel. So word spread, and soon the quote was shortened to, "It takes 21 days to form a new habit." And there have, however, been studies that show that this theory may not be completely accurate. So a study in the European Journal of Social Psychology analysed the habits of 96 people over a period of 12 weeks. And on average, it is said that a habit takes around 2 months to become automatic behaviour, 66 days to be exact. And for some it may take 8 months. However, there was a very strong positive correlation between how long a habit is implemented for and how easy it is to carry out that habit, meaning that the longer you maintain a habit, the less self-discipline is needed to carry it out and the easier it becomes. Now, this is a very personal message for me because back in 2013, I was incredibly uninspired and unmotivated. I remember I graduated from high school with a 1.3 GPA and I was rejected from 4 out of the 5 universities I applied for. It was a very bleak and miserable time in my life, but I used that negativity and what I saw as failure to my advantage. I flipped it around, and within just 1 year, I graduated with a 4.0 GPA and in the top 5% of my university. And since then, I've been kind of intrigued with this process of streamlining and automating my life and making productivity easier using a structure of habits. So for this 21-day challenge and the class project, I've included a workbook of the lessons. Define your goals, 80-20 your habits, and the evaluation of the week. So with the Define Your Goals worksheet, we'll find the one thing that if you achieved in the next 1 to 3 years would have the biggest positive impact on your life. And if you don't know what that thing is yet, don't worry, that's exactly what we're going to find out in the exercise. I'm really looking for some ambitious and kind of visionary goals here because I think most of us are capable of far more than we think we are. And after you've completed the worksheet, you'll have a solid and ambitious goal or goals to then become laser focused in on and build your habits around. The 80-20 Your Habits worksheet is about being extremely strategic and smart with your habits. So you're going to be doing these habits every single day. So it's so important that they help you reach your long-term goals in the fastest, most direct way. So after 6 months or a year or 2 years, with the help of these habits, you will achieve your goals. And finally, the evaluation of the week worksheet is all about reflecting on and refining your habits that you've created throughout the class. It's likely that your first set of habits will need kind of adjusting slightly within the first 7 days. Maybe they're too challenging or maybe they're too easy to achieve. And by the end of this worksheet and really kind of refining your structure of habits, you'll have the perfect set of daily habits that each day, step by step, will move you closer to your goals. So I really encourage you to evaluate yourself every 7 days and report back here either in the discussion section or the project gallery section if you've managed to achieve all your habits for that week, or maybe you've missed a day or two, which is completely okay because that's all part of the habit forming process. You can print off the workbook and follow through as we go through those lessons because I too will be filling in the workbook alongside you and showing you how I answer the exercise questions myself. The final project will be the completed workbook that goes through your thought process and the stages you took when planning and building your system of habits, from your initial set of goals to your daily habits, and finally any adjustments you had to make your habits to finalize the entire system. So this class was designed to be interactive and for you to participate because that's how we learn, right? By doing. So I encourage you all to take screenshots of the workbook if you're filling it in digitally, or if you've printed out the workbook, take pictures on your phone of your workbook and upload your progress in the project gallery. I've also included a habit tracker in the projects and resources section to keep track of your habits and mark them as complete as you move through the week. So habit trackers are an awesome way of setting tangible goals because when you see your daily progress, it really does help keep you motivated and on track. The second option you have is to track your habits using a habit tracker on your phone. So I go through some of the recommended apps, whether you're on Android or Apple, later in the class, because by posting your progress, whether it's before you start or in 7 days or in 14 days or in 21 days of the challenge, you're making a public commitment, not only to me, but to all the other students also taking part in the class, and will give you feedback and support on your habits and your goals. So I'm really curious what you guys have come up with, and with that, let's move on to why forming habits is so integral to purposeful productivity and achieving your dreams. In this lesson, we'll explore why forming habits are so powerful, because life shouldn't be this constant uphill battle all of the time. You shouldn't have to be forcing yourself to be productive every day and wrestling with procrastination just to get things done. But we've all been there. We all know what it's like to feel completely unmotivated and unproductive. And that's because naturally, our levels of motivation fluctuate throughout the year, right? Sometimes we feel motivated and sometimes you don't. So when you are feeling motivated to change, when you are feeling inspired, that's when you need to create a structure of habits. So when your motivation does drop, you have a system of habits to fall back onto and keep your productivity levels consistent. Because it's this set of habits that are going to automate certain processes in your life so you don't have to rely on self-discipline or motivation to follow through with them. So let me give you an example. When you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, right? You don't even have to think about it. You just do it. And that's because you've trained your brain to know that that's just what you do when you wake up, right? You've automated the process. So what if you could automate the process of other actions too? Like waking up at 4 a.m. every morning, or learning a language for 30 minutes every day, or sitting down at your desk to study for a 3-hour study block every evening from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. And that's what habits are all about, to help you become significantly more productive while at the same time streamlining your life so you're not having to battle with procrastination every single day. And the reason why I created this course on forming habits for purposeful productivity is because I only learned about how powerful automation can be around 7 or 8 years ago. So prior to about 2015, I was a night owl. I'd sleep at 2 or 3 a.m. and I'd wake up at 11 in the morning, maybe 12. So for my whole life, I just thought that that was my natural circadian rhythm, telling me that that was the time that I had to wake up and sleep, because whenever I did try to wake up early at like 7 or 8 a.m., I'd feel absolutely exhausted for the first few hours. But then in 2015, I started studying for an economics and finance degree at university, and I had to wake up at 7 a.m. for class. But what I did differently this time was I made it into a habit, meaning I didn't just wake up early during weekdays, but on weekends too, to kind of train my mind so that's just what I do, right? Because if you wake up early on weekdays, but on weekends you have a lie-in, you're kind of untraining your mind. So when Monday comes around, you probably struggle to wake up early again. And just to make sure I did actually wake up, I put my alarm on the other side of the room, so when it did go off, I had no choice but to get up out of bed to reset it. Now, I'll be honest, the first couple of weeks weren't easy. It took a lot of self-discipline, a lot of willpower, but what I realized was that after about 2 or 3 weeks, it started to become a lot easier. Instead of waking up tired, I'd wake up energized. In fact, some nights I'd wake up naturally 10 or 15 minutes before my alarm even went off. I even took it one step further because I realized that I was by far at my most productive in the morning. So instead of waking up at 7 a.m., I started waking up at 4:45 a.m., which would give me an extra 2 hours of really kind of focused work in the morning before I started my day properly. So throughout my bachelor's degree for 3 years, every single day, I woke up at 4:45 a.m. It was only possible because I automated the action of firstly waking up in the morning at 4:45 a.m. every single day, but I also automated the action of going to sleep by about 9:30 p.m. every night, again, 7 days a week. I can give you dozens of examples of how I've kind of formed particular habits, and sticking with them have completely changed the course of my life. And that's why I think the topic is so important, because it's equally important that you have kind of a crystal clear set of goals that you can aim towards and set up a system of habits to boost your productivity with no extra effort required to kind of reach your goals faster. So in the next lesson, we'll go through how to set those goals the right way. The goal for this lesson is to really clarify what you're trying to achieve in the short to medium term. And this is a really important lesson because it will influence how you will go on to create your habits later on in the class. And that's why I've created a worksheet in the class project, which you can access now and we can work through it together. It could be a good idea to pause the lesson now and print the worksheets out if you haven't already. So opening up the worksheet, it starts off with the question, what is the one thing that if you achieved in the next 1 to 3 years would have the biggest positive impact on your life? And I really want you to think big here. Now is not the time to hold back. Be as ambitious as you can while keeping things realistic. So for me, there are 2 main things. The first thing is learning to speak Vietnamese fluently. The second thing is to be able to coach and support 50,000 customers in my blockchain business within the next 1 to 3 years. Now, I'm going to keep my answers relatively brief just because I don't want this lesson lasting for hours, because I could literally talk to you about my goals and ambitions for a long time, but you can be as specific and detailed as possible with your own answers. Really, the more detailed and thought out your answers, the better. So moving on to the second part of the worksheet, if you achieve these goals, how would that change your life? So I'm living in Vietnam now, so being able to speak Vietnamese would open up so many doors, both in my personal life and in my professional life. And being able to serve 50,000 customers with my blockchain business would take my professional life to the next level. I'm really passionate about business. To me, it's kind of like playing a game. It's what I'm doing 8+ hours a day for my whole life. And so growing the business to that level would help me build out the team, invest back into the business, and exponentially improve the products and services that I can provide for my customers. So there are 2 ways that you can go about achieving your main vision. The first is to just choose one hugely ambitious goal goal and funnel all your resources and energy towards achieving that one goal. The second option is to choose 2 to 4 smaller goals that are maybe focused on different areas of your life. So let me give you an example. Throughout high school, my grades were pretty average. I was relatively unmotivated and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So honestly, I didn't study much. And when I graduated high school, my grades reflected that. So when starting university, however, I knew I needed to do something drastically different. So I set myself a goal of graduating in 3 years' time with a 4.0 GPA. Now, this was a hugely ambitious goal for me, as I'd never even achieved an A grade in my entire life. And now at university, I was planning to graduate with an average of an A grade, equivalent to a 4.0 GPA. So that goal for me was hugely ambitious. And that's why I only set one main goal. So on my worksheet, I would write down graduate in 3 years with a 4.0 GPA. So fast forward to now, and I did graduate with a 4.0 GPA, and I'm in a far different place in my life now than I was back then when I was a student. Right now, I'm focusing on kind of balancing out my life. So in my opinion, in my definition of success, if you like, there are 4 pillars: health, wealth, people, and happiness. And happiness is last because if you have health, wealth, and people taken care of, then happiness will follow. So these pillars are important because if you focus too many resources into just one of those pillars, then the other pillars will suffer. It's like many people dream of being a billionaire, right? But if you dedicate every ounce of your energy chasing money, then of course the other areas of your life will suffer. So back when I was a student, I had one hugely ambitious goal, but now I have 3 main goals. The first goal is to be in the best shape of my life by my 30th birthday, which is coming up this year. The second goal is to become conversational in Vietnamese by January 2024. I'm living in Vietnam now, so it's only right that I learn to speak the language right. And my third goal is to become an expert in the blockchain Web 3.0 space by January 2023. So those are my goals. If I achieved each one, then it will significantly improve the quality of my life. So for example, being in the best shape of my life before my 30th birthday. That goal has forced me to get a personal trainer, for example. And that alone has been an absolute game changer. Learning Vietnamese on a conversational level will open up so many doors in my personal life and business life. And becoming an expert in blockchain/Web 3.0 is a necessity because I have another business educating on those topics. So of course, I need to be well educated myself in that area. Moving to the next part of the worksheet, do your goals excite and inspire you? Because they absolutely should. And if they don't, it's important to add detail and refinement so that you are more passionate about achieving them. I won't fill in this box because I've already been through this process, and these 3 goals really do inspire me. I've had these goals for maybe 8 or 9 months now, and I'm still as passionate and motivated in achieving them as I was on day 1 of making them. The next question you need to ask yourself, and the next part of the worksheet, is do your goals feel like a challenge? So I see this time and time again where naturally we want to play it safe, right? Making goals that are extremely ambitious can be risky because the more ambitious our goals are, the less likely we are of achieving them, right? But I really want to encourage you to be as ambitious as you can. I really like Grant Cardone's 10x rule, and that states that 1, you should set targets for yourself that are 10x greater than you believe you can achieve, and 2, you should take actions that are 10x greater than what you believe are necessary to achieve your goals. He reckons that the biggest mistakes most people make in life is not setting goals high enough. So is there any way that you can make your goals more challenging, but at the same time still achievable? Like I said earlier, I've already been through this process, so my goals are already extremely challenging for me. But if I wanted to take them to the next level, instead of having a goal to become conversational in Vietnamese by 2024, I could make it to become conversational in Vietnamese by 2023, for example. And that really would push me to really spend a lot more time and resources directed towards that goal. And the final part of this exercise is to make sure that your goals are smart. And this means that your goals, to be effective, need to be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Now, when preparing for this course, I was thinking, should I change my goals to be more smart? So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Because not all my goals are smart. For example, how do I know if I've become an expert in blockchain and Web 3.0 by January 2023? But I'm not going to change them. I want to be completely transparent because I've had these goals for the last 8 or 9 months and they've kind of been ingrained into my mind, so I don't want to change them now. Saying that though, I've been an avid kind of goal setter for years now. So if you're new to goal setting, then I absolutely recommend you follow the SMART system. For example, I'm learning blockchain and Web 3.0 technology, and the one way I could create a milestone for myself would be to complete an 8-week course, for example, or to read an entire textbook, but actually process and retain the information on every single page. However, I made the conscious decision not to go that route for a few reasons. Firstly, because I've been goal setting for a long time now. Secondly, because this is kind of a fun goal for me, meaning that I don't really want any kind of restrictions or time pressures on this particular goal. And thirdly, because I really like to diversify how I learn about blockchain and Web 3.0. So for example, some days I'll just watch YouTube all day, and the second day I'll read textbooks. The third day I'll go for coffee with friends or acquaintances that are extremely knowledgeable on blockchain and Web 3.0. But if you're creating your goals from the beginning, I really do recommend that you make your goals SMART, as they'll be far more effective. An example of making one of my goals more SMART, I could change the becoming conversational in Vietnamese by January 2024 goal, because becoming conversational in Vietnam is very kind of vague, right, and difficult to measure. It can be interpreted differently by each individual. So I could change it to achieve a grade 3 in a particular Vietnamese language test by January 2024. By making that small adjustment, it's making the goal more measurable and more specific. So after you've filled in the defining your goals worksheet, go ahead and upload it to the project gallery. I'm really kind of interested to see what you guys have come up with. And also we can help motivate each other and create a community around our goals. You can also post any questions in the discussion section of the class, and I'll try my best to answer all of you. Now you have your goals in place, that's when you can create your set of habits. The goals are the destination, if you like, and the habits are how you're going to get there. So that's what we're going to go through in the next lesson. This lesson will be about being extremely strategic with how you form your habits. So this is incredibly important, because if your habits have not been optimized, then you'll be wasting a lot of time and resources. So there are two ways you could have gone, either having one hugely ambitious goal or 3 to 4 smaller goals. And the reason for that is because we all have limited resources, right? And if you have 3 or 4 massive goals, it's likely that you won't have the time or energy to achieve them within the allotted time. Because what you'll notice is when you spend time working on one goal, it can directly take time away from you working on a second and a third goal. So if you chose to have just one huge goal, then you'd match this with 3 to 4 daily habits. If you complete those habits every day, then you'd achieve your goal within the time you specified. So for example, my goal at university was to graduate with a 3.0 GPA in 3 years, which was an absolutely massive goal for me. So I set 3 habits in order to achieve it. Wake up at 4:45 a.m. every single day, study for 8 hours Monday to Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday, even on holidays, go to the gym at least 4 days a week. So all of these 3 habits helped me achieve my main goal of achieving a 4.0 GPA. I realized that waking up early in the morning was so important for my productivity, because I was at my most motivated and productive first thing in the morning. At 4:45 a.m, most people were still asleep, so no one was messaging me or emailing me or distracting me, and I could actually get a lot of work done. So I implemented Robin Sharma's 1991 rule, which states that for the next 90 days, spend the first 90 minutes of your day on the single biggest task that will move you closer to your main goal. And doing that every morning as soon as I woke up was a game changer, because often that 1.5 to 2 hours of morning studying, I'd get more work done than the entire rest of the day. However, my habit of studying 8 hours a day was probably the most important in terms of achieving my main goal. I realized that most people would increase the number of hours they were studying the closer their exams came. And then about a week before their exams, they'd be studying for 10 or 12 hours a day, just cramming in as much information as they could. Then the holidays would come and they wouldn't study at all. So my approach was to treat my university degree almost like a full-time job. So just studying consistently 8 hours a day and making it into a habit, so I didn't even have to think about it. So I just knew in my mind that every day I have 8 hours of studying to do. And that one habit made my whole university journey so much easier. The third habit of going to the gym 4 days a week, if I'm to be performing at my most optimal, I need to be healthy both physically and mentally, and going to the gym and staying in shape, that helped massively. So those were my kind of daily habits about 4 or 5 or 6 years ago, because I want to illustrate how my habits change over time. So these days, because I don't just have one big goal, but I have 3 smaller goals, my habits are quite different. And just to recap, my 3 smaller goals are be in the best shape of my life by my 30th birthday, become conversational in Vietnamese by January 2024, and become an expert in the blockchain/Web 3.0 space by January 2023. So opening up the 80-20 habits worksheet from the class project, you'll see the first exercise is to write down your main goal or your main goal. And this is just to make sure that when you are building your habits, you're making sure that you're centering them around your goals. So I'll write down all 3 of my goals into the define your goals box. I have one daily habit for each goal. The first habit is to drink 2 liters of water a day, because I really do struggle to maintain that. It's so easy for me to forget, so I made it into a habit. I'm also going to the gym at least 5 times a week, but I have a personal trainer that keeps me accountable for that, so I won't include it with this set of habits. My second habit is to learn Vietnamese every night for at least 20 minutes. And this could be reading, writing, talking, or even just watching Vietnamese films or TV program. And the third habit is to study blockchain technology for at least 2 hours every day. And this can be watching YouTube videos, reading books, or even just kind of going out for coffee with a friend who is super into blockchain, because that's one of the best ways that I learn, having kind of conversations with experts in the field, if you like. Whichever method I choose, as long as I do it for at least 2 hours a day, that's the habit I've built. So it would be easy for me to recommend you to just create a set of habits in line with your goals and leave it at that. But I really want you to 80-20 your habits. The 80-20 rule is honestly one of the most important and kind of transformative rules that I live by in my everyday life. It really has saved me so much time. I mean, it saved me hours every single day. So the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle, states that 80% of consequences come from 20% of causes, or 80% of outputs are as a result of 20% of inputs. So an example of this in the 1940s, Joseph Juran, who was well known at the time in the space of field of operation management, he demonstrated that 80% of product defects were caused by 20% of problems in production methods. So by focusing on reducing the 20% of production problems, a business could significantly increase its overall product quality. So I want you to use this same principle and apply it to your own goals and habits, meaning that your habits should be designed so that if you complete that one task every single day, is going to move you closer to your goals faster than if you did anything else. I think it's important that you're strategic when it comes to building your habits, so that you're not just creating habits for the sake of creating habits, right? And also that you're not creating too many or too few. So your habits should be relatively easy to complete when you're feeling motivated. So when you're feeling less motivated, they'll still be achievable, but they will push you, and that's by design, to keep you productive long term, not just experiencing kind of short spurts of productivity when you're feeling inspired, and then completely slowing down with productivity when you're not. So going back to the worksheet, you can write your 3 to 4 habits onto the worksheet, but making sure that you're able to tick off each box in the checklist. Making sure that each habit will strategically and effectively help you move towards your goals, is achievable to complete daily, but still challenging, and is measurable so you know when you have achieved it. The final part of the worksheet asks you if you complete these habits consistently for however long it takes you to achieve your goals, in what 3 ways will your life change? And you might notice that I mentioned this a few times throughout this class, because I can't really emphasize enough how important this is, that when you are building and going through your habits on a daily basis, you keep in mind the end goal. You keep reminding yourself why you're doing it. You're doing it because you're achieving your habits every day in the long term. It's going to significantly improve the quality of your life, and that's why you're creating habits and completing them every single day. As of why I'm doing it, number 1, I'll be in the healthiest shape I've ever been, which I'll continue to build on, which will benefit me in my business and my personal life in terms of allowing me to have more energy, be more productive, and just overall live and more fulfilling life. Number 2, I'm learning Vietnamese because it will open up so many doors again in my personal and business life. And honestly, I just think it would make life a bit more of an adventure if I could actually speak to the people around me on a daily basis, right? And number 3, the second business that I'm running relating to blockchain and Web 3.0, I need to be an expert in that field to push the business forward and really make an impact at scale. It's something that I'm super passionate about. So to build another successful business off of a passion will be a genuine dream come true, as cliche as that sounds. So as you complete the 80-20 habits worksheet, take a picture with your phone, or if you have filled the worksheet in digitally, then take a screenshot and upload it to the project gallery section so we can help each other stay accountable and on track. But also, selfishly, I'm just really kind of curious what kind of habits you guys have come up with. And again, if you do have any questions, let me know in the discussions tab and I'll do my best to answer you all. The main idea of creating these habits is to streamline your life and make your productivity easier and more consistent. And using the right habit tracking tools is super, super important too, because this can make it even easier to maintain your habits. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next lesson. This lesson will cover the habit tracking tools that will make following a system of habits even easier and more efficient. And one of the main uses of implementing habits is to automate certain parts of your life to make productivity easier. And we can take that one step further by using tools to help us with tracking our progress throughout the week. And this can be done in 2 ways. Either on pen and paper or using a dedicated habit tracking app. And these trackers help with a few things. Firstly, they act as a reminder, which is the single most important reason why I think habit trackers are so important. From what I see, forgetting about your daily habits during the day, consequently forgetting to do them, is the easiest way to fail the 21-day habit challenge. Secondly, habit trackers keep you honest and accountable. If you skip a day, then those empty boxes will be staring back at you, reminding you of the promise that you made to yourself. And thirdly, they provide motivation, because it's often the progress that we see on our path towards a specific goal that helps keep us motivated to stay on track. So the first way to track your habits is the good old-fashioned pen and paper. So I've added a habit tracker to the class project part of this course so you can print it off and use it. And you can see it really is very simple to use. You can customize it how you want and have it on your desk or somewhere where you're constantly seeing it throughout the day. I think it's really important that you don't have your habit tracker hidden away somewhere, because then you're more likely to forget to use it, right? And that's the biggest drawback to using a pen and paper habit tracker, I've found at least, that habit tracker apps on my phone do a much better job because I always have my phone with me everywhere I go. Whereas when I leave the house, I might forget to bring my pen and paper habit tracker. It's just another thing that I need to remember, right? So over the last few years, I've used countless habit trackers, but my favorite by far for Android is Habit Hub. So Habit Hub is based on Seinfeld's productivity secret, don't break the chain. Every time you complete a habit, your chain grows longer. Eventually you will build a very long chain, and your only job now is to keep the chain growing. So it kind of gamifies tracking your habits, because once you've built a long chain, then you really don't want to break it, which gives you kind of additional motivation. So with this app, you can organize your habits accordingly to different aspects of your life by assigning them to your categories, and you can visualize your data with graphs to get an overview of how well you've been doing. The single 2 most important features for me though are the reminder and widget features. So as I mentioned earlier, the biggest reason for failing to complete a set of habits during the day is simply forgetting, and you eventually remember just before you go to bed, but it's already too late, right? What the reminder feature on Habit Hub does is that you can set it so that if you haven't completed your habits by, let's say, 7 p.m, then it will give you a reminder on your phone to make sure that you do them. And this feature alone has saved me so many times on days where I'm just kind of super busy and I just simply forget. But then the app sends me a notification that night to remind me. The second feature is the widget. I like having all my productivity apps as visible on my phone as possible, meaning that as soon as I open my phone, I have my task list there, my calendar and my habits that I need to complete that day. So throughout the day, I'm constantly seeing my uncompleted habits, essentially making it almost impossible to just forget that I have to do them, right? Because I'm always seeing them. So Habit Hub is my favorite habit tracker on Android. However, about 4 months ago, I moved from Android to iPhone. And as I was moving all my apps over from my Android to my iPhone, I was really surprised to see that Habit Hub wasn't actually available on the Apple App Store. So it took me an hour or so of downloading and testing maybe 7 or 8 of the most popular habit trackers. And I basically had 3 criteria. First, it must have a simple, minimalist user interface. 2, it must have a reminder feature to give notifications. And 3, it should have a widget feature so that it can be very easily accessed as soon as I unlock my phone. The 2 that I found are Streaks and Habitify. I'm actually using Streaks and have been since getting the iPhone, and it's an amazing app, super simple and easy to use, and it does everything I need it to do and then some. But there's just one disadvantage. It's $5. Now, I don't mind paying that because it's an app that I use literally every single day. And for me, it's worth it just for not having ads pop up whenever I'm using it. And it's a one-time payment, so it's not a monthly or yearly subscription, right? But I know a lot of you would much prefer a free app, so I also recommend Habitify. So Habitify is one of the most downloaded habit trackers on the Apple App Store, for good reason as well. It's a really well-designed app with a simple yet attractive interface, and there are a few kind of additional bonus features like the Pomodoro mode and the countdown alarm. There's a paid version of this app too that gives you a few more features, but for 99% of you, I think that the free version will absolutely be enough. So those are the apps that I recommend, whether you're using Android or whether you're using iPhone, or if you want to use pen and paper, there's the paper tracker app in the class project section that you can print off too. Ultimately, tracking your habits in any form will help keep you on the right path, right? Whether you're using one of the apps I recommended, or maybe your own app, or a system that you create yourself, it's important not to get bogged down in the kind of details of choosing the perfect habit tracker. Instead, focus on what really matters: building and maintaining good habits. So in the next lesson, we'll use the tracking tools that we established in this lesson to actually implement the habits themselves. Maybe the next lesson will be the most important lesson in the whole class, in my opinion. So I'll see you over there. In this lesson, I'm going to go through an average day to show you how I implement my own habits into the day. So a quick recap of the 3 habits that I currently have: drink 2 liters of water a day, learn 20 minutes of Vietnamese every day, and study blockchain technology for 2 hours a day. Now, I do want to mention that I do have other habits such as waking up at 6 a.m. 7 days a week, going to sleep at the same time, going to the gym in the morning, those kind of things. But those are habits that I've literally been implementing daily for years at this point. So I don't really measure or keep track of them anymore because I do them every day anyway, and they're kind of already automated. So my first habit of drinking 2 liters of water a day starts as soon as I wake up. I drink at least half a liter as soon as I get out of bed. Essentially, that's 25% of that daily habit complete, right? And throughout the day, I'll bring with me a 2-liter bottle of water so I don't forget. Obviously, if I keep seeing my bottle of water, then it's going to keep reminding me that I still haven't hit my goal yet. So with the drinking water habit, that's spread out throughout the whole day. However, the second goal of learning 20 minutes of Vietnamese every day, obviously that only takes 20 minutes, and I tend to do that as soon as I get home from work in an evening. I'll then move on to my third daily habit of studying blockchain technology for 2 hours. Now, I've played around with these habits. I've tried learning Vietnamese in the morning. It didn't really work for me because I needed to wake up, go to the gym, then go to work straight away. So there really wasn't that much time. I've also tried studying Vietnamese for 30 to 40 minutes a day, but honestly, it was just too much to maintain long term. And I think that brings us to a really important point, that these daily habits shouldn't be super difficult to implement every day. They're designed to promote consistency. So if you are finding them difficult to complete to the point where you're struggling to maintain a 7-day streak, then it could be a good idea to make that particular habit just slightly more achievable. Just like I did with my Vietnamese, I brought it down from 30 minutes to 20 minutes because that was far more manageable with everything else going on in my life. Also, what happens with me sometimes is that I'll have a super busy day at work, sometimes 12-hour days, and I'll get home and honestly, I'm just too exhausted to spend 2 hours studying blockchain. I can do 20 minutes learning Vietnamese, but 2 hours studying blockchain is honestly just too much, and instead I go straight to bed. It very rarely happens where I miss a habit, but the extra kind of mental and physical stress I would have had to put myself through to study for 2 hours after an exhausting 12-hour workday probably wouldn't make it worthwhile. And I think that it is okay if you are genuinely exhausted to just skip your habit for that day. However, don't use that as an excuse. There's a difference between being lazy or being tired and being genuinely exhausted and burned out, right? What I find a really good motivator is that if I skip a day, it means that I have to do the habit twice the next day. So let's say I miss learning Vietnamese for 20 minutes today, then tomorrow I have to learn Vietnamese for 40 minutes. And that in of itself is a really good motivator to not skip a day, because then you have to work twice as hard the next day, right? I also took a week off from my daily habits recently because I contracted COVID-19. My symptoms weren't too bad, but I was feeling a bit ill, so I took a week off, and I think that's completely okay, as long as you make sure that you jump back on as soon as you feel better. I think the biggest problem I see is when people are kind of super motivated, so they set their habits, but after a week or two, their motivation kind of starts to drop. Therefore, the motivation to follow through with their daily habits also starts to drop. And this is why it's so important that, well, number one, your habits are not too arduous or boring, right? And two, they're genuinely habits that will help significantly improve your life in the not too distant future. So James Clear in his book Atomic Habits derives a concept called the 4 laws of behavior change, meaning that there are 4 key components to build a successful structure of habits. So with an example of someone wanting to build a habit of, let's say, eating at least 3 pieces of fruit a day, there would be 4 components. 1, make it obvious. Don't hide your fruits in your fridge. Put them on display on your kitchen counter or dining room table so you keep seeing them throughout the day. 2, make it attractive. Start with the fruit you like the most, so you'll actually want to eat one when you see it. 3, make it easy. Don't create needless friction by focusing on fruits that are hard to peel. Bananas and apples are super easy to eat, for example. 4, make it satisfying. If you like the fruit you picked, you'll love eating it and feel healthier as a result. So your habits should be streamlined themselves. They shouldn't be incredibly difficult to achieve every day. That's completely not the point here. Another approach, if you are struggling to stay consistent with your habits, is what is called habit stacking. It's where you take a habit that is already an automated behavior. So for example, having breakfast at the same time every morning, and then attaching a second habit to that first habit. So that might look something like learning a language for 20 minutes during breakfast. That way you're more likely to follow through with your habit. And I think that's really powerful. Another strategy you can use to stay more consistent with your habits is to have an accountability partner. Maybe you and a friend can go through this 21-day challenge together and hold each other accountable. So I used to have an accountability partner at the gym, and it really does work. I never missed a single day at the gym when I had an accountability partner, because he was holding me accountable and I didn't want to let him down. So I encourage you to return to this lesson after 7 days to remind yourself of the tracking system, but also to post your progress in the project gallery section, because that in of itself will help hold you accountable. And I'm curious to see, and I'm sure many of the students are too, how many people can actually complete the 21-day challenge. The main takeaway from this lesson is that it's really important that if you do miss a habit one day, then don't beat yourself up over it, but just kind of reset and restart again the next day. It's also absolutely imperative that you self-reflect regularly on this whole habit forming process, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to cover the evaluation process that I go through when creating a new set of habits, because it's usually not just as easy as implementing a set of habits and then just kind of completing them every day, right? There's usually an adjustment period in the first few days where you'll need to either make the habits easier or more difficult to achieve. So the evaluation stage is an incredibly important part of the habit forming process. So I've included a worksheet in the class project section to guide you through that. If you haven't already, you can pause the lesson here and print off that worksheet so we can go through it together. The single most important question to ask yourself throughout this entire process, and also the first exercise of this worksheet, is do you feel like your daily habits are directly helping you move towards your goals? Because if they're not, then you need to do something about it. How can you kind of adjust your daily habits to make them more efficient and effective? So let me give you an example. One mistake that I made a few years ago is that I had too many habits. So as soon as I'd wake up, I'd have a habit of drinking a glass of water. Then I'd meditate for 15 minutes. Then I'd do yoga for 30 minutes. Then I'd learn a language for 15 minutes. And I had like these 6 or 7 habits that I'd do in the morning. And honestly, it was just far too much and complicated. They weren't really helping me move me towards my main goal. So now I keep things super simple. I just have 3 main habits, and each habit has been created to achieve an ambitious long-term goal. The second part of the worksheet asks the question, were there any habits that you failed to complete in the first 7 days? And don't worry if there were. Often when I go through the habit forming process, there will be habits that when I'm creating them, I was maybe slightly over enthusiastic maybe. And realistically, they're just not achievable every day over the long term. So for example, one of my habits is to be learning Vietnamese for 20 minutes every day. But originally it started off with learning Vietnamese for 30 minutes every day. But I quickly realized that 30 minutes was just a bit too much to carry out every single day in the long term. So I reduced that habit down to 20 minutes. And now it's far more manageable. There's no point in kind of making your habits so ambitious and so challenging that eventually you just give up, right? It kind of defeats the point of making the habit forming process. And that's why the final part of the exercise is to ask yourself whether you feel like you need to adjust your habits and make them more achievable long term. And really, this is a question you should be asking yourself very regularly, because for me, my habits do change slightly every kind of 6 months to a year. So for example, my life might get super busy, even more than it is right now, and studying blockchain for 2 hours a day might just not be achievable, in which case I can decrease it to 1 hour a day. The main point here is that you keep your habits consistent. It's not necessarily about pushing yourself to the limit every single day, right? Consistency and gradual progress is far more important. So maybe your habit of waking up at, 4 a.m. every morning was just too extreme, or going to the gym 7 days a week was too taxing on your body, in which case it is okay to make them slightly more achievable. However, do remember that if you can make it through the initial conditioning phase of the first 3 or 4 weeks, then your habits should become much easier to sustain. It's also important to notice any kind of trends or tendencies you may be having in terms of successfully completing your daily habits, or if you're regularly failing to carry them out. So for example, maybe you're forgetting to complete them by the end of the night, even with your habit tracker reminders on your phone, in which case it could be a good idea to complete all your habits in the morning when you're less likely to be distracted with the other things going on in your life. I encourage you to come back every 7 days for 21 days to show your progress and to kind of post screenshots of your habit tracker app on your phone or your completed worksheets into the projects and resources tab of this course. Or if you're recording habits using the habit tracker provided, using pen and paper to take a picture of it with your phone and upload it here, because there have been numerous studies that show that you're more likely to achieve your goals if you write them down. So for example, psychology professor Dr. Gail Matthews at the Dominican Republic in California led a study on goal setting with nearly 270 participants, and she found that the participants were 42% more likely to reach their goals if they physically wrote them down beforehand. So the more interactive and kind of engaging you are posting your progress, the more likely you are to follow through with your habits and complete the 21-day challenge successfully. And finally, if you are having any problems or you've come into any kind of obstacles, you can reach out to me in either the discussions tab or the projects and resources tab, and I'll try my best to answer all your questions. Throughout this class, I've shown you how you can increase your productivity and streamline your life by building a structure of habits to help automate parts of your life. You now have a system you can use to maintain a life of good habits. And once again, I really do encourage you to post your final projects in the project gallery of the class. I'm wondering actually how many of you will be able to complete the 21-day challenge. I'm confident that most of you will be able to. And the beauty of the challenge is that after 21 days, your habits should start to become automated automated, so they'll need far less self-discipline to actually complete them every day. And it's worth mentioning that over time, your goals and therefore your habits will change. My habits when I was studying at university a few years ago are very, very different to what they are now. Likewise, in a few years' time, they'll probably change again. And as we go through life, our goals will be changing constantly. So it's a really good idea to, every now and then, say every, 6 months or so, to come back to them to make sure that you are still on track with achieving the happiness and success that you deserve. I want to say thank you so much for sticking to the end of this class. If you want to leave me a review as well, I'd love to hear from you and know what you think. I'm going to be making more lifestyle classes on topics such as productivity, study advice, morning and evening routines, daily habits, that kind of thing. So do stay tuned. If you're a student studying in your exams, I already have 2 classes that I made recently, one on how to combat procrastination and the other on how to boost productivity specifically for students. You can check out my profile to watch those. And with that, I hope you all have an amazing day. I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you in the next class.